The most important thing that you got to do when you're developing a fighter is the mindset. The mindset of giving them literally the art of war. Like, you have to let them know that this is not a game. You're walking in, it doesn't mean you're going to walk out.
That's a quote right there. That's a
You know what I mean?
Right
so you really have to develop that mindset of them of being warriors and how serious this is. If you don't, like I tell some of the fighters, don't expect your sport to respect you if you don't respect it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I've experienced the highs of the highs in the sport and the lows of the lows. And, as a coach, I ended up burying one of my fighters in 2014, Alex Chucky Mercado, may he rest in peace. That by far was the worst experience I've ever had as a coach.
Was that through fighting or was it just from natural causes?
No, he passed away. He passed away 1 month before his bout. He ended up passing away. He had a brain aneurysm. Ooh. He was sparring. He was looking. The second round didn't even end before I stopped the sparring because he was just looking really bad. Yeah. And we just noticed him. It was just something that we were not used to seeing from him. So we stopped the sparring, and I was like, "Hey, what's wrong with you, man?" And he was like, "Man, I don't know." Coach is like, "Man, I didn't eat today, and I feel just real dehydrated." And I was like, "Hey, bro, you can't do that though, man. You got to make sure you're eating before whatever." And then he starts telling me like, he's like, "Hey, coach, man, I don't feel good, man." And then so I'm like, "Man, you know what? Let's just call the paramedics to check him out." Because I was in my head thinking you just really bad dehydrated or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Never once did that cross my mind. Obviously, how could it, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure he doesn't complain too often, right?
No. Oh, man,
it was out of his character.
Chucky was the definition of a fighter, of a straight warrior. You know what I mean? And then his last words on earth was, "Hey, coach, I don't feel good, man." And he just started convulsing. And I pulled him out the ring where the paramedics got there. Again, I'm still in my head thinking, I don't really even remember what I was thinking, but it wasn't that. So we get to the hospital and the doctor comes out. We're in the back. The doctor comes out within a few minutes. He's like, "Hey, do you know his family's contacts?" And I was like, "No, why?" He's like, "I need you to contact his family right now." He's like, he needs emergency, brain surgery, all that. And I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And it was bad. They ended up, I believe a week later, they pulled the plug on him.
By then, he was
unresponsive. Unresponsive. Yeah. They said he was going to be a vegetable and stuff like that. So, it's unfortunate, man. It's that's the sad reality of the sport that we love. Whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA, whether it's, Muay Thai, if you're in a fighting sport, man, it's brutal any way you think about it. That's why with me as a coach, I get very offended when I hear other fighters are like, "Well, nobody dies in the ring or nobody dies in the cage."
That's a big one, yeah.
For me, it's a very, very sensitive subject, and I'll walk away from conversations like that because they'll really turn into something big with me because I've experienced burying one of my fighters.
Yeah. Do you think that's a very specific, I know MMA, every combat sports, Muay Thai, there's CTE involved, but particularly boxing, right? Because you hear from history, James Toney or, just people that have boxed for quite a while, and boxing in particular, I don't know if it's just mainstream media in general that, gets that out, but then CTE seems to be very, very prevalent. Now, it makes sense because you're trying to hit him in the head and go for the knockout and stuff like that. Whereas it's MMA, you got takedowns and there's many ways you could win.
Yeah.
Do you think that's again, a correct assessment of that? Boxing is more kind of, I guess, hurtful to your brain compared to the other combat sports?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a lot more dangerous in the sense, I think I seen Daniel Cormier talking about that, where, you in MMA, they get dropped, a lot of times they get hit a few times on the ground, the fight's over. In boxing, you get dropped and they're counting you to get up. So fighters, they're prideful. Obviously, they don't want to get knocked out. They get up. They're still concussed and they're still going. They're going. Then they get dropped again. And then here comes the count again.
Yeah.
the fight's not over, man. The trauma to your head continues. You know what I mean? And so either that's why I always say that it's important to have a good experienced corner. Sometimes the corner has to step in and save their fighter to fight another day.
Yeah, but isn't there like kind of like a boundary and a fine line with that? Because you got the fighter going, I could go, and then it's kind of like a tangling. I've never been in that situation, obviously, but then it's kind of like I would have figured for you that's like a fight within itself. It's like, okay, well, you got the guy, especially if he's a professional, and then that's his way to like provide for his family.
Yeah.
But then you want to keep him healthy. That seems to be like...
Yeah, I look at it, you have to look at the reward of it, right? If it's a regular fight, why am I allowing my fighter to take punishment? Unnecessary punishment, right? If it's an elimination bout for a world title or a world title itself, now that's where you kind of, as a coach, that's where the experience comes in. Where you have to be like, oh, am I really gonna allow my fighter to take this punishment with no reward behind it? Or is there a reward, or does he even have a chance? You know, does he have a chance to come back from this? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, as a coach, that's one of the biggest things. You can't look at the money, man. You cannot. You have to be willing to lose your job to do the right thing. And that's okay with me. As a coach, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for other coaches. Because of the experiences that I've went through, I'm willing to lose my job to save a fighter.
Yeah.
If me losing my job is because I saved your life, or I saved you from, from maybe career-ending injuries, I'm okay with that, man. I'll still be able to sleep good at night. I'll still be able to look at you and smile. You know what I mean? Because I know I did my job as a coach. The same going back to my fighter, man. I beat myself up for years, bro. For years, that haunted me. Like, what could I have done different? What could I have seen different? And specialists, the doctors there, they're like, listen, there's nothing you could have done. No, I would have not been able to notice that.
With going back to that, coach, like with the fighter that unfortunately the tragedy happened to, was that an accumulation over time, or was it just one big drop, like one big hit?
No, because I want to say over time that he had it, just on the fact that he never in his sparring sessions ever got hurt or rocked or nothing like that. Nothing. There was never a training session that none of us could remember that he was like hurt or he was like, oh man, I got rocked. Nothing. Most of his sparring sessions were always real competitive, but it was never where where he just got outgunned and was like, damn, you got beat up today. Nothing like that. But, again, that's just, looking for answers that we'll never get.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's something that you don't have control of. That coulda, woulda, shouldas, right?
But the only thing that me as a coach, again, this is me talking, I can't speak for other coaches, is that's why I get in their head to make sure that they're ready for war. Because that's exactly what it is, man. It's war. You're again, people that don't fight are never going to understand that. These men are going in there with the intention of hurting each other because one wants to eat better than the other. It can't be both. Somebody's going to come out a winner, somebody's going to come out a loser. And I'm not even talking about if you actually win or lose, and I'm talking about somebody's a winner, somebody's a loser. Physically and mentally, somebody's going to leave more in that ring, in that cage, more than the other. Yeah. And that's why fans got to appreciate fighters more on the sense of like, okay, a fan just wants to see a fight, right?
Yeah, they want to see
and it's unfortunate that's their career, right? But they really don't realize, man, what those fighters are leaving in there. They're leaving a part of them that they're never going to be able to get back. But that's the beauty and the sadness of this sport that we love so much. There's the beautiful moments for it, and there's the ugly moments. And the ugly moments for me is sad, man, when I see a fighter that once was the man, and then he goes into that cage or that ring, and you're like, damn, man, that old lion's still trying to fight, but you just don't got it. For me, that's heartbreaking, bro, to see fighters, even if I'm not a fan of theirs. You know what I mean? To me, it's sad. I'm like, damn, man, that, hats off to that old lion still trying to fight for the territory, but just ain't there no more.
Yeah, I think that thing that you're talking about just now is just so primitive in us. It's not just in boxing. I mean, it's basketball, right? When they're way past their prime. I know it's not like getting hit in the face or anything, but then it's like, okay, well, you know, Kobe knew when to call it quits, right? Because he just didn't have that juice anymore.
Absolutely.
He'd score. He wasn't shooting the same. He had to adjust his game. And that's the same with fighters. But unfortunately, you could get hurt, as far as in boxing. But the other thing is that's the only thing you know how to do in life, right? Because you've been boxing since you were a kid, most likely. And now it's like, what do you do? That's PTSD, I mean, literally within itself. Not being able to do what you love to do. Have you ever dealt with that before where a fighter wanted to go in there as far as like, man, I keep wanting to go in, then you kind of had to like reframe?
I've gone through that in my position as a coach where, you know, fighters think they're going to come back and I have to remind them and not even as the coach no more, man, just as a friend, like, hey bro, like maybe you want to think about this.